How you doing, guys? So today I'm going to be bringing you a test. Someone asked me this question a couple weeks ago, probably even 2 months ago, about the foam boards. This one in particular is the Everbilt watershield waterproof boards. Sell these at Home Depot. This is also known as the Ardex TLT system. I got these at Home Depot. Ardex America is the manufacturer of these boards, shower pans. The whole system is made by Ardex America. So the question that I had was, can you install the boards, install the pan, and use RedGard or Mapei to glue down the banding, right? That's the test that I'm going to run today, because if you're in the industry, everyone knows that Thinset is not a waterproof material. It will soak water. So when I first started building these systems with this board, showers with these boards and this system, I would use Thinset on the corners and the changes of plane where the wall meets the shower pan, or a corner, on a corner. So today is August 29th. Let me open this phone up. There you go. August 29th. All right. This video is going to be, I'm going to try to make it as short as possible, but it's going to be multiple days, because today what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this box together. I already have my pieces cut. They're not perfect. I am going to use the Everbilt adhesive sealant to seal the corner, to glue all the corners together, and it's going to basically mimic a shower pan and walls. I have done this test already with sealant alone, and it worked fantastically. Those that have watched these videos already know that I am a big fan of the Everbilt waterproof boards and shower pans. But I will say I like the Go boards a little bit better than these, because these the Go board is a lot stiffer. With that being said, the Go board sealant, not a big fan of. I think the Everbilt adhesive sealant is way better than the Go board sealant. So then, as you guys know, the last shower, you probably saw that video. The last shower I built, I used Everbilt pan and Go board for the walls, and I used Everbilt adhesive sealant to glue down the banding. That's it. And that shower passed the flood test with no problems. Now, the reason why I do these tests is because Thinset, as I already mentioned, and many of you already know, Thinset, as you already know, is not a waterproof material. And in Europe, by code, you are not allowed, I repeat, you are not allowed to use Thinset in a shower to build showers. Now, I know we're not in Europe, we're in America, but I think that they got it right. Because as I said, Thinset is not a waterproof material. So, if I were doing walls with, let's say, Hardy Backer, and I was installing sheet membrane, yes, I would use Thinset to lay the fabric down, and then on the corners, I would use the Everbilt adhesive sealant to do the corners, because as I stated, Thinset is not a waterproof material, and it will soak. So I'm going to go ahead and build this box and come right back to you. Alright guys, so as you can see, I built my box, and I tried to limit the amount of adhesive sealant I put on the corners because I want to do the banding right there with RedGard to answer the person's question. Now, the way I'm going to be doing this test is once I RedGard the banding in, which by the way, you can do, because if you read the back of RedGard and MAPE, you actually can use this to put on your banding. I'm trying to find it somewhere around here, but just to not make this too long, you guys can actually stop the video and read it for yourself. But you can use RedGard and MAPE to lay banding. And for those of you that need a little bit of a background on me, I am 41 years old. I've been in the construction industry since I was 15 years old. I've done bathrooms, I've framed houses, roofing, everything under the sun except for electricity and plumbing. So, you know, I can speak on, I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I can speak on, you know, building a shower because I've built many of them. And I usually build my showers traditionally. That's HardieBacker, RedGard, mud bed. I don't use the shower pan liners like the rubber PVC liners. I usually lay down roofing felt paper with mesh and do the mud bed with dry pack, and then put membrane over it with a flow effects drain or some type of drain like that, and create a sealed system. That's how I've always done my showers, and now I am moving on to doing them with the foam boards and the prefabricated shower pans. And like I said, I like Everbilt's system. It's one of the first ones that I've ever used, and I think it's a great system. I just like the Go board wall boards a little better because they're a little more stiffer than the Everbilt boards. Other than that, I have no issues with Everbilt or Go board. Like I said before, the Go board sealant, it works, don't get me wrong, but when you go to do banding, you have to use Thinset, and then you have to RedGard over it, because that Go board sealant is not, you cannot apply waterproof membrane with it, unlike the Everbilt adhesive sealant that you can. And you can go down to previous videos and you can read it for yourself that you can actually install membranes, as it says right here, right there, that you can apply this. You can use this to apply waterproofing membranes. So there you go. All right, so I'll be back tomorrow once this dries. You know, this is, like I said before, it's going to be one complete video. So I'll be back tomorrow once this dries and continue building this box. All right, guys. So it's still August 29th, 6:49 p.m. I know I did this box around 2 o'clock, I think. I do want to rephrase something I said earlier about code in Europe. It's not that they can't use Thinset. I want to fix that before the armchair experts or the keyboard warriors come out of the woodworks and saying, what do you mean they can't use Thinset? What do they adhere the towel with? What I mean is they can't use Thinset to apply their banding or their sheet membrane. They have to use a waterproof material to install their banding and sheet membrane. So this box is almost done. Like, it's almost dried. Like the Thinset's already, the Thinset, the Everbilt adhesive sealant is already skinned over, and you know the box is already nice and sturdy. So I may put a couple pieces of tape here, just so when I add water, it doesn't just, I doubt it's gonna just, you know, fall apart, but just in case, I'm gonna add some tape. Also, when I apply the RedGard, this is the fabric that we usually use. This is a waterproof fiberglass mesh type thingy that we use for the RedGard. And I do want to show you guys here where it says, because I found it, just can't remember where. Right here. So it says right here, RedGard for extra seam protection, embed custom waterproofing reinforcing tape into the liquid. That is what this is, but that's also what this is. The only difference is that this has a non-woven material on the top of polyethylene, which is a plastic type material. So that's what I am going to be installing. This with RedGard. I'm gonna do that later on tonight. I just wanted to bring that back up to you guys. So that's gonna be next. Alright guys, so I got the banding in on these corners and on the change of plane. I did not have any corners, like preformed corners. So what I did was what we usually do when we're using RedGard and this fabric. What we do is we cut our own corner and then just make it into a corner like that. Just obviously it's bigger. I just didn't make them too big because, you know, but if I were going to use this method, I would use obviously preformed corners and everything that comes for the system. It was pretty easy to install. You know, it didn't slide out anywhere. I did, again, since I'm not using preformed corners, on these corners here, there is a little bit of a buildup because there's a couple layers. There's this layer, that layer, and that layer. You know, they're all meeting together. But if I was doing this with preformed corners, obviously I would do the preformed corner, then the banding the way it's supposed to go, which is like 2 inches. You know, it'll stop maybe right here and right here, and then the preformed corner would come out to here. But I didn't have any, and even if I did have any, I would not use this for this test because corners and stuff are pretty expensive. You know, you're talking about 12 to 15 bucks for 2 of them, I think, or 1 of them, if I remember correctly. So I wouldn't even spend that type of money to do this test. I would just do it the way I did it right now. This is his first coat. I will give it a second coat once it dries. But as you guys can see, it worked perfectly. Well, at least sticking it on worked perfectly. There's a little bit of, I forgot a glob there. I did this with a brush. I did not have any trowels or anything. because those are in the truck and I'm not about to dirty them. So all of this was installed just with a brush, a 1-inch brush at that, because that's the only one that I had that I can spare. You know, I'm not going to destroy a $15, $20 brush just to run this test. So I used one of those little 1-inch chip brushes that I had laying around there, and that's what I used to do that. So it's not perfect, but it's just to run this test and see what happens. All right, so we're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna give it a second coat, and then I'll bring you guys the you know, once I'm gonna upload this video so it's not too long, and then I'll bring you another video filling it with water, and I'll leave the water sitting for, you know, about 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, who knows, to see what happens. You know, this is just a test, so let's see what happens. Catch you guys on the next one, guys.